AI Think Tank podcast, the future of intelligent systems, machine learning, and data science. I'm Dan Wilson, coming to you from Seattle, Washington. Our guest today is Greg Hutchins, a global authority on engineering excellence and corporate risk. With over 45 years of experience, Greg is principal engineer at Quality Plus Engineering and has helped organizations worldwide to navigate uncertainty. He pioneered the idea of managing quality through risk, and his firm was certified by the Department of Homeland Security for its work in critical infrastructure protection. He is also the author of more than 30 books, including the framework known as CERM. Today, we'll explore how his expertise connects the technology governance from ISO 42001 to the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, and what it means for managing risk in the age of AI. Welcome to the show, Greg. It's great to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Daniel. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for having me on.
I've had the pleasure of seeing you in plenty of presentations over the course of a few months here, and it's just a delight to finally have you on the show and take some time to talk about some new standards that are really important to look at right now for U.S. businesses and everybody else involved with AI and data. You have a really interesting background in quality engineering, and you have a company called Quality Plus Engineering that's been very active in some very large projects. Love to hear more about that.
So I started out as an oil and gas engineer a bunch of years ago.
Uh-huh.
And if you're in any engineering discipline, you sort of migrate from one area to another, largely to see where the opportunities are. So about, oh shucks, almost 18 years ago, we were one of the first companies that were approved by the US government for cybersecurity. Yeah, how did we get into it? Well, we'd been doing risk-based auditing,
Hmm.
and a bunch of federal agencies said, hey, we want to start auditing cyber systems. Brand new, we were the first people, one of the first companies but that was largely on board at that time. And we rode that wave for a long time. And now we're doing basically AI assurance because what we started 20 years ago is now a pretty much mature industry, meaning cybersecurity. But AI is largely immature. And we're working with the feds, basically trying to answer a couple questions. How do you develop trust in AI systems?
Hmm.
And that basically is under the rubric of AI governance, sometimes AI assurance. But here's the problem. We're investing trillions of dollars in these AI systems in terms of data centers, in terms of LLMs.
Hmm.
But how do we know if we can trust these systems?
Hmm.
And here's the problem. These systems are maturing much faster than our capability to understand them or to control them. And what's happening is these systems now are hallucinating.
Hmm.
They are lying, both in terms of
Wow.
omission and commission,
Hmm.
and they're showing evidence of self-preservation,
That's right.
meaning they don't want to shut down.
Hmm.
And if these systems that, you know, say best case, look out for us, worst case, look out for themselves first,
Hmm.
we're in trouble.
That's right.
So we're trying to answer the question, how do you develop trust in these systems? Because these systems are, well, they're going to be involved in all human decision making, and we don't understand them quite often. We
Hmm.
don't understand the inputs, meaning the quality of the data that's going into the system. We don't understand what's happening in the black box,
Hmm.
and we don't understand the outputs.
Right.
And that's a challenge. So we try to answer three questions. And these three questions are very simple. One, what do these systems have to adhere to or to comply with or to be consistent with? Meaning, do you have a standard? Do you have a
Hmm.
rubric? Do you have a law? Do you have a guideline? Quite
Hmm.
often we don't.
That's right.
Two, the second question we try to address is if you've got a law or guideline, how are you going to measure that? How are you going to audit against that? How are you going to assure, verify, validate?
Hmm.
And the third question is who's going to do that validation? Do you need engineers? Do you need experts like yourself, Daniel? Who's going to do that? Who are you going to trust? And here's the problem. We're investing billions of bucks in these systems, billions, trillions of bucks.
Yeah.
And if we don't trust the systems to be fair, equitable, transparent, explainable, then we don't trust them. And the companies, and by the way, if we don't trust them, we're not going to use them.
That's
And if we
right.
don't use them, somebody else will. And all that investment is not going to have an ROI.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's basically what we're trying to do
Mm-hmm.
is to find out, how do you build trust?
Mm-hmm. It's so many levels of mistrust going on right now in all of this. You have to really wade through it, and there's a lot of muck out there and a lot of confusion. But it is approachable, and a lot of the standards that we've seen, again, this is integral to cybersecurity.
Mhm.
AI is just data, but it's its own world because it has that ability to. No, it's not consistent. It's a guessing machine. It's very fickle, and it takes a lot of corralling. And prompt injection is still a huge point of undermining, all of these systems. And there are ways of mitigating, there are ways of managing it after the fact in some cases, but you cannot, it's just hard to guarantee, in some cases, right? In some environments with that ecology. If
Yep,
someone's
yep.
using an API outside of their company, and you use OpenAI, you use Claude, you know, let's say Grok, whatever. But for whatever purpose, you've got an API, you have an exposed endpoint. Even if there are layers of security inside of that as well. But if you're
Mhm.
trusting OpenAI and you say their data retention policies for snooping, and for safety and abuse and things like that, which we need,
Mhm.
okay? Don't get me wrong. I don't want someone trying to look up how to do bioweapons or something like that, right? But things change, policies change, national policies shift, and all of a sudden what you thought was safe and it didn't expose your data or at least it adhered to some kind of GDPR, or you thought, hey, 30 or 60 days. No, now there's a demand for all of those to be held indefinitely and to be searched through and looked for crimes and all this.
Mhm.
All this, I mean, like, you don't have a reason to worry. Most people don't. But if you did have any kind of private information in there, guess what? There's an avenue for abuse in the reverse of things, for that information to be used, for that to be, someone could use that to target you, sell that data. All it takes is the wrong gatekeeper to, exploit their, what do you call it, access, and then sell it. And we've seen this kind of thing happen before, but like, it's human nature. So you're having to look at so many factors of, well, is it worth the risk? Like, it's probably not. If you anonymize your data, you say, here's a company spreadsheet of all this information. We're going to
Mhm.
anonymize the names and addresses. We're going to keep the actual numbers the same for the stats we want, but we're going to anonymize
Mhm.
everything else. You put it in there. That's good practice. And there's little platforms and software that'll do that for you. Okay, but if you didn't do that, guess what? You may have breached a policy. You may have breached a contract agreement with someone, because all of a sudden their data is now living on someone else's cloud and you have no control over deleting it. And that's a quagmire. And that's when it's not clear. Companies are out there promoting a feature and a hype wave. Like, oh, I'm not going to name any of them, but companies that provide vibe coding, and they say, oh, our
Mhm.
agentic coding will do all this for you, down to RM-RF, and remove your root file system. And no, there goes the database. And now you're like, it's so much babysitting after the fact and looking through and parsing through code. And the best metric I've seen thus far, because I love this argument with coding, is that a good engineer, a good developer is going to use this as a tool, and you're going to get great results. But someone who doesn't know what they're going to do are going to trust this tool more than someone who's experienced, and they're going to be flying blind mostly, without the good standards and practices under the belt to see what is what, or even understand what type of variable certain variables are. They shouldn't be using this. They should be using a tuple. They wouldn't know that. And so these systems really encourage people to play, and I support play and hacking and developing and creativity. But the playground is a sandbox. And the problem is the business, okay, this silo of actual production and
Mhm.
integrity, they've put the sandbox inside the building. It's it needs to be safely explored, okay? And I love all these tools that are coming out, but I don't at the same time. It's like, well, this is going to be an inconvenience later as much as it seems convenient now. MCP, great example, Model Context Protocol. Yeah, let's
Uh,
get a bunch of tool servers together and you can poison them. You can poison the documents that go through them. There's so many attack vectors. There's so much incentive to be a bad player and a bad actor these days. There's many opportunities as there are to actually circumvent and exploit these systems, right? So it's no surprise to see a wealth of new attacks every week. So forget about AI assisted hacking. Like look at just like trying to make it safe on its own is its own hack. In some cases. So that's what we have to remind people of is that your company data is yours and you have a right to manage and work with that, within reason and within your policies. But the moment you start using all the shiny new toys, you're taking a risk that you may not understand. And if you use a certain checklist for your sovereignty and your data exposure, you can
mhm.
determine where you shouldn't go further. And if you're doing something that's completely anonymous, great. I use these tools for a certain amount of things, and then I don't use them for other things. And I use local AI to do that work to keep it private. So it's just knowing where the limits are and where how to cross the street and when to, if you need to go somewhere and use something like just don't take anything important there. Make sure it's anonymous and basic. But
By the way, I'm taking notes. So as Daniel talks, I listen and take notes.
okay,
So you
gotcha.
bring up a good point.
Mm-hmm.
We've been, right now we're a software shop.
Mm-hmm.
A year ago, we would do line by line coding, syntax essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 1 year, we've gone from line by line coding
Mm-hmm.
to low code, no code,
Mm-hmm.
to voice to app.
Yeah.
Think about that. In one
Yeah.
year, we've gone through almost 4 generations
It's
of
fast.
technology.
It's impressive.
Now, it
Really.
doesn't mean that vibe coding is perfect,
No.
but what it says is,
Mm-hmm.
um, just give you a quick example of how important this is, or how risky it is.
Mm-hmm.
We, two of us, worked on a particular piece of code that we needed in our software project.
Mm-hmm.
It's got about 1,000 screens. We're building an app, an AI risk management framework app.
Mm-hmm.
Almost got 1,000 screens, million lines of code. And we had a particular area where we had to deal with state. And it was
Mm-hmm.
difficult for us, state permissions, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things. Two of us worked on it for 2 weeks, not full time, but let's say quarter time.
Yeah. Yeah.
We gave this same project, and by the way, we solved the problem in 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
part time. We gave the problem to Gemini
Mm-hmm.
2.5 Pro.
Right.
And in half an hour, I came up with a not an excellent example of the code, but
Mm-hmm.
pretty damn good. That's the,
Yeah.
you know,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
didn't get the steak well enough. It didn't get a couple other goodies well enough, like
Mm-hmm.
permissions,
Sure.
but it got the code uh, pretty damn good. Now we had to do a lot of QC on the code.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple thousand lines,
Yeah.
but still, the technology is moving so much faster than our
Every.
ability to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, take what you're saying, which is really personal and business,
Mm-hmm.
and put it into a government area,
Yeah.
such as transportation,
Mm-hmm.
such as a chemical plant, such as a refinery. What happens if somebody can basically breach the business system
Mm-hmm.
and go into the control system?
Oh yeah. Yeah. All
What
kind of
happens
things.
then?
Yeah. 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 Exactly. It's too late. You've got to pull the brakes on everything, and it's a forensic nightmare. It's what it is.
Well, a lot of it, it's supposed to be air gapped, but
That's
still
right.
there are
Uh-huh.
connections.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to that connection from the AI system, who wants to do bad things to us humans,
Yeah.
because it's already showing evidence of self-preservation, of lying, of
Mm-hmm.
deceiving.
Silent casing.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It is. Yep. Yep.
What happens if it starts breaching, going across from a business system to a control system.
That's scary. And you didn't even you would not foresee that. And it's like the call is coming from inside the house kind of breach. All of a sudden you've got a bad actor. You've
Exactly.
got the worst of bad actors right there under the porch, and it's like seeping in. This is a great horror. We got to write a movie together. Okay. So, that's real. It's very real. And this is nothing apart from things that have happened before in different ways. But here because you have, worms, Trojans, you have all the malware, but something that can adapt is so much more powerful because there you have that player on the inside of an air gap network where there's nothing communicating to it, right? And
Yep,
all of a sudden it has its own agenda
that's
based
right.
on some black box transformer architecture that may or may not, and then also the state of its affairs, the state of what it has been trained to develop and what it's doing, right? You can develop a certain amount of safeguards inside of a model, okay? And they try to do that
Yep,
already, right? These foundational models, right? But there is a point where anything is able, you can circumvent anything, in the human psyche. If someone doesn't, if they get sleep deprived, right? If something happens, the best of people can be fallible, okay?
yep.
Someone's sick, whatever. It would take hubris to agree to think there was 100% security and sanctity in something. To get close to 99 is beautiful, right? We want that. But to have the right like stop points, these stop gaps in between all of this is about the only way to do it. Like a firewall, like a literal firewall in a building, like old school firewalls, right? This is nothing different than that. But again, the call is coming from inside the building. And who knows? If you don't let something evolve, if it's not some self-training, system, even if it's just a single LLM, and you're starting fresh every time with it, it can still reach a state whereby you have bypassed its internal securities, where you have actually cajoled it into some other way of operating, essentially. And and it's just so fallible. Again, prompt injection, fallible. Document poisoning, a big vector. And it takes time. There was an exploit in June that didn't become public for like a little while here. OpenAI's deep research. If you had connections going out there to like Google or OneDrive or what have you, there were exploits where people were able to send poison documents, and if it did deep research on this or it became exposed, it would actually start silently casing in a way it would not show you in its output, okay, in the chat history, and start doing things silently and prepping for stuff, right? It's really interesting. It's really scary. And it wasn't resolved until August. And a lot of people didn't even know about it. They kept it on the hush. And I hate that, right? So I want to know, at least. So you have to be careful with the tools you use. It's just like gossiping, okay? It's just like talking to someone in your neighborhood or whatever, and you shouldn't talk to Johnny. Johnny's got a big mouth, and all of a sudden, he's talking about your clients to all these other friends of his who happen to have a concern in that field, and now they're looking at your clients like, I wonder if I could get those. Not saying that couldn't happen with AI, but I'm saying that worse, is looking for your data and it wants to eventually send it out. You'd never know. There's just no way to audit the black box aspect in the transformer architecture, and it's transient in vivo. You know what I mean? It could change. So there's my 3 cents on that. So,
Well, we
yeah.
try, when I was saying, we
Mm-hmm.
looked at the code that was generated by Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Code was good,
Yeah.
but here's the things. When you're looking at code and a human, by the way, this is called human in the loop or human in the
Mm-hmm.
middle, whatever it is, but
Right.
basically have some type of human in the system to check QA, QC, validate, verify, whatever you want to call it,
That's right.
test,
Mm-hmm.
we're not ready for this. So
No.
in general, if you're doing a QA, QC,
Mm-hmm.
a visual on lines of code, you're basically 80% accurate.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
And these systems can do two things.
Mm-hmm.
One of it's called commission. The system intentionally will deceive us. It does it through intent. And when you're looking at code, and you're an expert in code, You can change a variable very, very easily,
Oh yeah,
and your eyes don't catch it because normally it's written in some type of subscript,
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
or uh, there's an array, and you just simply lose track of things because you're
Mm-hmm.
paying already attention to
It's
50 other things, and you lose track of how a
uh-huh.
variable can change.
That's right.
So that's intent.
Mm-hmm.
The machine intentionally tries to deceive you.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that these machines will do is something called omission.
Oh yeah.
They will hide things and not tell you what they did or why they did that. Or there's no audit trail or the explanation that you request from the machine
Mm-hmm.
isn't there.
It almost gaslights you because I can have any
That's
kind of
right.
type of operation in AI, whether I'm coding or I'm writing a report or I'm doing some form of research, okay? And then
Hmm.
I'll wonder, why did you tell me like this, or why did you do this? It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I should have said all this. It can do that for any given turn. Literally. Like, it's wild. And I'll say, well, why did you leave that out? Or you did this. Why did you do that? Oh, I'm sorry. AI is exemplary of ask. It's easier to ask for forgiveness later, you know, but there's no punishment. There's no ramifications for the AI. It's not intelligent. It's not really going to suffer. It's not truly cognitive, and not that we need some suffering machine, but we need something that's not so insufferable to begin with, right? And so to have something manageable, to have explainable AI, that would be great. And frameworks help, and I think that is, in the crux of today's talk, we want to talk about exploring a framework or two, some standards and frameworks that really help mitigate that risk. And because you have spent many, many years as a certified enterprise risk manager, okay, yourself, and what you do to help companies assess these situations is far reaching and vast and critical to their infrastructure and the integrity of their operations, no matter where. And so, as someone who comes from the QA/QC background and in digital forensics, uh, I've been looking forward to having the standards and framework talk with you for a while now. And so, I know that we have NIST's AI risk management framework, and then also I know you have more insight into the ISO 42001 and how they really kind of come together. Those two standards really mesh to a degree. Um, how is this playing out in your environments though? Like just for your own company, how are you implementing this? Like say in your coding, are you finding some other automation where this framework is becoming a heavily used thing, or?
Great segue, Daniel. Great segue. So thumbs up. Yeah, we should have probably been talking about this a couple minutes ago. So the first question we talked about is what standards, what guidelines, what laws are you going to adhere to?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very simple. If you don't have a standard, you can't measure it. If you can't measure it,
Mm-hmm.
you can't basically manage it. If you can't manage it, you can't legislate it, you can't enforce it, and you can't control it. And if you can't control it, you can't have a safe system.
Mm-hmm.
And there's right now only two standards globally that are recognized. One is called the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, RMF.
Mm-hmm.
AI, it's abbreviated AI RMF. That's the US standard.
Mm-hmm.
The other standard out there is called ISO 42001.
Mm-hmm.
So just to sort of give you a comparison, the ISO standard in the US is about 225 bucks,
Mm-hmm.
about 50 pages. Out of the 50 pages, it's sort of scoped, framed in terms of the NIST cybersecurity framework,
Mm-hmm.
meaning you've got the standard and then you've got a bunch of controls and you fit the controls to the standard. That's basically how it's structured.
Yeah.
The other big standard, and by the way, the ISO standard is auditable. The other big standard is NIST AI RMF, Risk Management Framework. One that's free.
Yep.
You can pick it up off the web, it's free, and it's a good standard. Second, it's probably 20 times bigger
Yeah.
than the ISO standard. ISO standard, the standard really is, even though it's 50 pages, 10 pages of the standard is the standard.
Right.
About 35 pages are what we would call controls, maybe 10 pages of
Mm-hmm.
definitions.
Mm-hmm.
The AI RMF coming out of NIST is very thorough, very extensive,
Mm-hmm.
and there are challenges. One, it's not auditable. Two, unless you're really into AI or into controls or into cyber, it's really difficult to operationalize, to implement,
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
deploy.
Yeah.
The third challenge is it's, it just came out a couple of years ago, and we don't have wide deployment yet.
Right. Right.
But in the US, that's the only guideline we have.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is ISO, and interestingly, ISO standard came out about a year and a half ago, no, about 2 years ago almost, and its adoption has been very slow. Now
Yeah.
that's going to change in 26
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of more folks are worried about trust. What are these systems, AI systems, capable of doing?
Mm-hmm.
And especially if these systems are going to be used for decision making in terms of our healthcare,
Right.
our getting insurance, our getting housing.
Mm-hmm.
And more, these systems are being used for making decisions that impact us humans in a lot of
Yes.
ways. And
Yeah.
we want trust in these systems so
Mm-hmm.
that these systems at least are transparent and explainable, which right
Yeah.
now a lot of them aren't,
No.
quite
No.
frankly.
No. It can be approached, but and like there's last what was they said last year or so in AI was about what we can do, and then this year was about what we can really do, like doing something with it, right? But in the doing something with it, we've seen a lot of mistakes and a lot of
Yep,
guffaws and a lot of, unfortunately, it's really
absolutely.
embarrassing that there's a password 123 under admin out there for a lot of these providers, and you're like, guys, can we just make AI based mistakes and not like general security mistakes? Like AI company XYZ makes mistake with general password management. It's embarrassing, right? We need to be focusing and drilling down on these things. I mean, when I was at RSA convention this year in San Francisco, I got to see the
Uh-huh.
CISOs of OpenAI, Meta, Claude, AWS. I got to see a lot of people talk, and they had their own sort of little sort of firewalls. They had this thing as a prompt guard, for Llama at Meta, and it was like inbound requests from the users would get scanned a certain way, and then it would get adopted for the AI, and then it would also change the outbound if that, or maybe just stop it altogether. And so they had like some ways of doing that. It was like an 86 million parameter model. It's very small, can run on the edge really. And so they use that, which is a handy thing for anyone to use, if you're running your own platform. But a lot of the general idea that I got from everyone is that we're really working hard at something we do not have wrangled. And it doesn't matter. And Claude, shoot, they put out MCP last November. That's almost been a year out now.
Yep.
And in January, it really started coming to head, and then people started talking about it more. And suddenly, Google adopted it. It's like, great, this is good, but it's premature to start deploying a lot of these things. Even if you say, oh, well, what if I use an MCP on my company's internals? Okay, cool. But what if you had your own secure API that did all that, that wasn't based on some general model out there that someone could exploit by knowing, oh, MCPs have these vulnerabilities. I'm going to use that, right? Just keep it secure. It's another shiny tool syndrome kind of effect, I feel like. And I want to use it, but I'm more interested in securing it. And then even then, I'm more interested in just building something that's secure to begin with and using that, not having this be a factor. So the shiny new tool syndrome creates factors where there wouldn't be any a lot of times, and you could do that. But again, automation and what you said, implementing these things, making it approachable, and 2026 really being the time, which is in like 4 months, right? Three
Yep. Yep.
months until
Yep.
we're actually doing that. It's not far away. So what do you see as from your experience, what's making it approachable for the risk management framework from NIST? Like, what do you like about that, even though it's larger? So I definitely like it as well, but I want your take on it.
So let's go back to the question you brought up. Last year was the doodad, the shiny thing
Mm-hmm.
in terms of AI. Let's play with, see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
This year was really the year for agents.
Oh yeah.
Some of them autonomous, not too many, largely
Mm-hmm.
still Q&A oriented, but they're not going out and impacting us. Now that's going to change. Gemini, which is Google's little shiny object, now is accepting agents to do payments for people. Think
Mm-hmm.
about it. You
Yeah.
give
Yeah. Yeah.
you give the system, and then basically you have multi-agents or swarms of agents that are going to go through an MCP uh,
Mm-hmm.
server. We don't know how secure that is.
Mm-mm.
And when it starts making decisions about our finances, our health care, where we're going to live, how we're going to live, what we're going to pay for stuff, then I think there's going to be a lot more emphasis on the standards like the NIST 42,000, I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
AI RMF from NIST
Mm-hmm.
or ISO's 42,001.
Yeah.
Now, it's human that we basically look at stuff when there's high risk.
Mm-hmm.
This year has been the year of the agent. Next year, it's going to be the year of the autonomous agent making decisions for us.
Mm-hmm.
When these systems, AI agents, which are autonomous, make decisions for us, and hopefully they're good decisions, no problem. But when they fail, misuse, deny us access, whatever, charge us too much money,
Mm-hmm.
that's where people are going to get very, very unhappy.
Yes. Yeah.
And we,
Yeah.
yeah, so 26 is going to be the year of trust and standards.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
right now, there are only two standards out there, 42,001
Mm-hmm.
or the NIST AI RMF.
Yeah.
And what we would recommend is just pull out the NIST ARMF, AIRMF. You can Google
Mm-hmm.
it,
That's right.
take a look at it, start playing
Mm-hmm.
with it.
Yeah. I'm going to share that on the screen right now while we're talking and just give everybody something to look at here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, and I'll make sure to put this in the article, but for everybody out there listening, if you go to airc.nist.gov,
Yep.
there is the NIST AI RMF playbook. And as you see on my screen, it's broken down into four sections of govern, map, measure, and manage.
Yep.
And it's quite extensive. You can download the PDF or the CSV version, Excel, or JSON. I took the JSON as well and actually used it in one of my bots for helping me. And so everything is pretty well laid out. And I actually created a sort of remediation rubric for some examples of how to use it. But anytime you're looking at this, let's say govern, right? We'll just start at one. Legal regulatory, here we are. So legal and regulatory requirements involving AI are understood, managed, and documented. And so there's a breakaway here, and they have suggested actions, transparency, and documentation references and citations for that. It's very well laid out and can give you a workable roadmap for what you should probably consider next in some situations, okay? But keeping in mind, everything's listed in the sections govern, let's see here govern, map, measure, and manage, okay? So let's see here if I have this. Let me get my little book out here. Here we go. Okay, great. So here's an example. So, and this is for some of the education I'm putting together, but compliance. Okay, are we using AI for decisions that may affect people's rights? Well, here you can go to govern 1.1 in the RMF playbook. So we're going to go to govern 1.1, which we were just looking at, and yeah, that's what I had covered. So it gives you insight in how to approach and to measure and manage this all the way through to implementation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to show some other examples here. So vendors, do we buy or outsource any AI? Go to govern 1.6, and so example here is going to be governance and oversight. And then you get into this, and it says mechanisms are in place to inventory AI systems and are resourced according to organizational risk priorities. And there's an about section here talking about, an AI system inventory is an organized database of artifacts relating to an AI system or model. It may include system documentation, incident response plans, data dictionaries, and links to implementation software or source code, names and contact information. So it goes on. And they have suggested actions, transparency and documentation and references for everything. That's the skeletal model for this entire framework. And again, it's quite extensive, but you need that. And it's not exhaustive, though. I mean, again, you can see everything I'm scrolling through as encapsulating the entire framework, right? But again, really well laid out, no matter what you do or your technical acumen. So as long as you're in business and you understand tech to a minimal, I think that some of this is definitely understandable and approachable. So also, let's see here. I'll bring up another example. Oh, okay. Risk appetite. What's our tolerance if AI goes wrong? Well, you go to govern 1.3. Or who owns AI decisions? Right? Okay, govern 2.3. And maybe we'll show some map measure here. So digital assets. Does AI touch a revenue driving system? We're going to go to map and measure failures. What happens if a model biases or drifts? We'll use govern 1.5. Okay. So these aren't like the kit and caboodle complete answers. They are a roadmap and a framework by which to guide your actions. And so I really appreciate that they put it together so well for us on their site and just made it accessible. So highly recommend everybody checking that out. There you go. But yeah, so you've probably had your hand in helping people approach this and some tricky situations, right, Greg?
So it's sort of a quick story.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter was graduating from Oregon State University about 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and she needed a senior project. So we basically gave her two options: do the future work
Mm-hmm.
app, essentially, because if you're a senior in a CS program at UW or Oregon State, you have to have a senior thesis. That's a requirement for graduation. So what we do every year is we sponsor a team of software engineers. In this case, it was my daughter. There was only one person on the team. And 4 months before um, ChatGPT came out, and before the standard came out, the AI RMF, we gave my daughter two options. You could do an app on the future work, or you could do one on AI. This
Mm-hmm.
is before AI blew up.
Okay.
So she chose AI. We spent a year working on an app, which basically is an app on the AI RMF.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a trademark on the AI RMF app, which will
Nice.
be coming out at the end of this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Well, thanks. The point is, every state, and there are probably about 10 different laws coming out every week at the state level on AI regulation. Every one of those laws basically defers to the NIST AI RMF
Mm-hmm.
as the vehicle to comply with AI governance. So not only is this standard out there, but it's being called out and referenced by state statutes for compliance. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the powerful thing for the standard, or
Mm-hmm.
standards also guideline.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's beautiful. It's just that's what everybody needs, no matter what level you're at in a business where you're using this technology. It's a necessity. And it's good that everybody's, the provenance is there, right, from the original source through these, it's trickling down in the right way. Trickle down should
Mhm.
happen, like for once, right? So I love that. It's just it's a dream come true if you work in cyber, and AI to see a sensible and reasonable, framework like this. So I love it.
Well, the power is cyber has been around for 20 years now.
Hmm.
The way to make money in the future is to basically take these AI frameworks, 42001 or the NIST AI RMF, and start becoming a guru right now.
That's right. Yes.
Because one of the things I want, at least our readers, our listeners,
Hmm.
to understand is AI trust, AI governance, is where the money is going to be made right now.
Yeah.
Cyber, hugely important, but it's a mature industry. AI assurance or AI governance is right now, and these two standards out there. There are very, very few consultants. I mean, you can basically, importantly, you can count them on a
Mm-hmm.
handful. And,
More
you
people
know,
want to implement AI features and hype than anything else I've seen, and it's a screaming jungle of solicitation every day, where you're
yes,
like, "Hey, you want to integrate this?" And like, actually, I do the opposite of that. I make it safe. like
that's right. Make it safe and
you're
trustworthy.
throwing fire, you're throwing gas at a fire. Like it's people just everybody's got to eat, but you know what? They should be working on the protecting end of things a little bit more for their own sake. Gosh, you're right though. There aren't as many as there should be, and it's a very, I want to say it's a dry subject, but it's just not exciting for some people until you realize that in the course of implementation, it's exciting to do things right, and that you should have that integrity in your step when you approach these projects. Because again, you'd be flying blind. Okay, it's just there's enough uncertainty out there as it is, and if you can get 60% accurate when you approach a project, that's enough to start getting some ground and footing, because the things change the moment you start engaging with them. The systems will change a little bit, but you know again, a reasonable path to success comes from something that you can measure and implement, and something that's easy to fall back on in times of need. Most people will get a lot of this planning in order without the contingency planning, or
Uh-huh.
have a fallback.
Hmm.
A backup of your backup is one. But you actually need a backup procedure for what procedure failed. You're going to have a whole net. You are your own safety net in all of this if you are not getting help.
Yes,
Okay, and if you're not finding those professionals out there, well, I'm working to change that to a degree. So it takes time, but I think that like with what you're maybe we'll definitely have you on again at some point, because next year you're going to be right about a lot of things, and we're going to want to kind of blow the whistle on some things and show it off. But you really have some work cut out for you, and what you're able to do in a lot of these meetings that I've been seeing, and just very fortunate to participate in, is gold, and it provides the sanity and the overreach, for any leader to say, hey, you know what, let's stop, pump the brakes on this, and let's really just assess what we have. And by having a means to do so, instead of hearsay and like Googling and like using just, like the AI to help you with AI, like how about some human guidance? Okay. Human in the loop,
yep, yep.
where it matters. Just like you said, I don't want something managing my life that can't manage a paragraph of truth. I don't want something that's silently casing me while I'm doing my best to frugally live my life and help society. I don't need that kind of judgment, or anyway, so without stepping on anyone's toes, frameworks like this can really enable a company to adopt security as a cultural, it's a cultural change. It's important. It's important to say, oh, we're not just everything security. We're obsessing over these things, but just to feel confident without the worry and the hype concern and that wave of uncertainty that can be there at times.
Absolutely,
It's
Daniel.
looming, man. It's looming, and it will make people. There's pressure on all ends to start a project, pressure to hold off, pressure to reconsider, and it's again. And then the AI is there to gaslight you the whole way if you don't keep it on the rails. And it's yeah. So I love this. And the RMF. So when it comes to the ISO 42001, what are you, and you said it really boils down to like 10 real beefy pages of actual like practice, or what
Yes,
have you, but in those bullet points and in that distillation of ISO 42001, are there any factors inside of it that you see lacking in NIST's AI RMF that should be addressed? Or do you feel like, again, like we've kind of known that these two standards mesh pretty well? Is there anything in one that the other deserves, perhaps, or have you had time to even look at that?
absolutely. So what we would recommend is the ISO standard is very simple.
Hmm.
again, it's only about 10 pages.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with 27001, if you're familiar with the NIST cybersecurity framework,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
going to work out very easily for you
Yeah. Yeah.
because you have the requirements, you have the controls, and you match them. That's basically how it goes.
Mm.
Um, if we're starting the journey for AI governance or AI assurance, ISO 42000 is where you should start.
Okay.
You brought up earlier the maturity curve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the first steps in the maturity curve is to basically start this journey of building trust. And one of the great things about the standard is um, it's actually called out in most legislation around the world. You
Mm-hmm.
brought up Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Most countries in Asia right now are calling out ISO 42001 compliance.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Now, Singapore is, China is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about Malaysia. You're
Mm-hmm.
an
Oh,
expert
they're in
there.
there. Yeah, we're with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what's going on. Yeah.
So, if you're starting the journey,
Mm-hmm.
in the US, the two standards that are referenced for compliance are NIST and ISO.
Yeah.
Now, ISO is also auditable. There are a lot of great things about the ISO standard that we recommend.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit more expensive. So, if you have to do compliance or do care or due diligence, ISO is auditable. ISO 42001 is auditable.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you can self-declare, which a lot of countries will allow you, even the EU for the first year will allow you to self-declare, meaning you say, oh, yeah, we comply with your requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe years two, three, four, they'll put on more requirements and especially have an auditor, independent third-party auditor,
Mm-hmm.
audit you. But if you're in the US and you want to basically demonstrate to the feds, for example, that you comply with the requirements, because the US is taking a different posture. We're doing self-determination.
Yeah.
You basically can take ISO 40, you can take the ISO 42001 or AI RMF,
Mm-hmm.
implement it into your systems, and tell the government, yep, we self-declare, we comply with your
Yeah.
requirements. That's the other option.
How much proactive reporting are you seeing come out of this? I know this is all in flux right now and developing, but are there any companies that you've noticed that have a well implemented, report system for this, where they, we roll out something and then we have our proofs and validation for everything, and then we can map this out and, you know, just as they go. Is anyone being that thoughtful right now? Do you see or?
So I can bring up a couple quick stories.
Okay.
One is we wrote the first book in 42001.
Mm-hmm.
First year, last year, our sales were flat.
Yeah.
In the last 3 months, they've gone up like this, almost like a hockey stick.
Right.
Two, when we checked in January of this year, we went to ChatGPT and we put in through the prompt how many companies are registered globally to ISO 42001. Six companies.
I was gonna say, I bet it fed on two hands. I know it did.
That's right, Daniel. That's
I didn't want to
exactly
say it.
right.
I didn't want to say it, but man, that's the fact. Yeah. Okay. So you could call them up in an hour and figure out what. Oh, there's only six of
That's
them to
right.
check
That's
on.
right. Now there's 20.
Now there's
Eight
20.
months.
Okay.
Now, 8 months later, there are 20.
Okay. All right. All right.
This
Yeah.
time next year, there will be probably 1,000.
Uh huh.
The year after that, 27, probably
Yeah.
5,000. It's going to be a
Right.
hockey stick.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're seeing
Definitely.
that right now with our book sales.
Hmm. Well, that's really good. That's a good sign and for sanity out there too.
Well,
Well, look at the news. Every week I look at cybersecurity news in a review, but every
mhm.
day I look at what's hot in real time, right? And you can't, if you do a show a week later after something happens, it might be too soon because you don't have enough information uncovered. It takes time for the post op, right? And then all of a sudden, what you learn along the way is, people really thought it was one thing or another. It's fun, but in these cases where people are going to be ramping up, it's like the smart people see it's a matter of doing the right thing and managing so they can measure to learn to measure so they can manage and to be proactive, right? Because some of them may have been bitten already. Some of them may have made a grave mistake already with AI prematurely or unbounded and unbridled, what have you. The thing that breaks my heart is seeing a great company, a small, mid-sized business, or anybody use some AI provider out there that's, oh, we do all this stuff, but then they're are insecure and they themselves somewhat flying blind. They didn't know that something worked like this. Oh, we do this. We pass this off. We're not actually doing it in-house. We send it to someone else's API. Great. Well, you didn't spell that out. And so, my data's out the window in someone else's retention for whatever reason. There's there's a lot of places to falter, but there's enough information not to. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to do the show with you is to tell people, hey, we have sanity right now. It's been around for a while. We've had some time to kick the tires on it and compare it. I've done my own deep digging and comparing the two standards as well, and to find what you're saying to be very true. Now let's talk though about what's auditable. Now with the NIST AI RMF, why do you say that ISO is auditable, right? But the RMF isn't? Why do you say that? This is a teachable moment for me. So what's the difference really in that?
So ISO, many years ago, well, let's take 9001.
Okay.
9001 is a standard quality management system standard. Over the last, since 87, so how many years ago? It's 38 years now. They've developed a system internationally that basically says, we have a what is standard. What do you have to comply with? Remember those three questions we started with? What standard are you going to adhere to or comply with? 2, how are you going to audit or assure the standard? And 3, how are you going to do it or who's going to do it?
Yeah.
ISO has built up a system called the Management Systems Standards. They have them for environment, 14,001. They have them for manufacturing, 9,001. And now they have them for AI management systems called a AIMS, AI management system, which is basically 42,001. They have a structure now that the EU has adopted, and probably China will adopt too, as a way to answer those three questions. What are you going to audit against? How are you going to conduct the audit? And who's going to audit it? Those are three very simple questions.
Right.
So they have an international standard. In the US for NIST, we don't have that for AI.
Okay.
For cybersecurity, we have the CMMC, but we do not have that yet for AI.
Yeah, it needs to fall in step with cyber, 100%.
Exactly.
It's just
Absolutely.
data. It just happens to be data that can talk later.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely,
still,
Daniel.
when all of the hype around automation and AI really started to catch a few years ago, I am a procedural logic type of person and programmer, and I think about how much magic you can get away with if-then statements. There used to be a joke in the industry about, oh, that chatbot is just a bunch of if-then statements. There's no transformer behind that, and we know that eventually now we call chatbots what they really are now. They're truly chatbots. It's not just like that little robot that was fake. But you have the ability to have certainty with procedural logic, but all these switches and things too. Look at the worms out there. Look at all these exploits where it's intelligent enough to figure one thing out, if then else do this, right? All intelligence revolves around, well, in effect, in practice, the exercise of those kind of if-thens and that reasoning. But the development of it is a little bit different than that, right? And that's what makes AI different here. Is it's not procedurally coded in. It's trained to infer and extrapolate, which is not deterministic, and then it has a step of fallibility. Even if you turn the temperature all the way down on a model so it's not very creative and it just gives a dry answer, it's still not 100%. It's still using inference, right? So that's why AI can't do math at a certain point. It has to break away and use a Python shell to do it, or a Jupyter notebook, and actually crunch the numbers and return a result versus extrapolation. Well, I know 605 and 708 are this, and then it breaks it down into a bunch of little pyramids, and it's like, your answer is this. And it'd be right most of the time, but for larger numbers, it's incorrect because it's using inference, not deduction in its pure form. And I know deduction is a form of inference. I'm not going to split hairs on that right now, but it's something that if you take a management framework, not just for risk, but for actual implementation framework in terms of an active live auditing system and something that controls those gated, kind of like locks for a boat going up in a river, right? Want to raise the level of the water and bring it up. It should have to go through an ordeal to escalate to the next level. It needs to meet that standard before it can graduate. Oh, the AI is about to do this other thing, and so a series of checks goes off to make sure nothing's bad before it does that thing. And you've kind of got to roll your own these days. There's no out of the box solution that's going to really do it for you. And that's why I like this talk, because we've got to give people the wisdom and knowledge and insight to implement this and a simple decision tree approach. Oh, if your data is like this, you must do this with it. And if not, okay, sure, go to a third party and do this. But otherwise, eventually you're working down into an air-gapped, 100% data sovereign environment where the people are biometrically scanned. Like it's security escalated to however far you need it. But people are thinking about the money it takes to just train a model and features and get something out the door and the cost of implementation. Governance as a whole is just as important, but you wouldn't need it if you didn't have a product. So it's sort of like the chicken and the egg. We need both at the same time. So that's why I've taken time and then with the talks that you've given in the past to actually absorb that, reflect on it, and find ways of implementing it that makes sense with a human in the loop. Help augment the decider and the auditor. AI is a very valuable tool, just like you did for your coding at your company. About close to 1 million lines of code. That's nearly unmanageable for that's a lot for large teams, even broken down into modules, and not everybody's using Python either. So you're using JavaScript or you get C++ out there. It's very hard to refactor things. And a note from the field and from senior developers and folks out there that have been around for a long time, there's a saying that I love, and it's funny, but it's true. And talking about COBOL and old systems and old or old languages, like old languages don't die, they accumulate. Okay, and there's some things that just will not translate. That's why you've got ADA. What is it in the government? That's designed by a committee, but it does everything. And it can support threading and object oriented and this and that. Like they slapped on everything they could to make that work, and now you've got this legacy ball of spaghetti that everything's running on, and there's some floppy diskette somewhere getting turned on. There's some e-machine somewhere that never is. It's always good. It'll always work. I've had to support legacy software for decades, and it's a joy and it's a privilege, and also it's a nightmare, right? When it comes to there's a limit to where the software can go. And so I don't know. I just have so much respect for your perspectives on this, Greg, because you're out there doing the QA, QC. You're out there in the implementation and the education. You're having to spill the beans and help people manage their mentalities at the same time, and walk them through, because it's not as simple as throwing down a book on the table and there's your standard. Get to know it. There's a lot more to it than that, and cyber really helps. But if you don't have the foundation of cyber, or you're not looking at frameworks in general, then it's Greek. And I can imagine that for a lot of companies out there, they're coming to the table thinking, "Oh goodness, governance. Okay, all right. Well, let's see let's see what we can do."
So I'd like to leave folks with a couple thoughts.
Yeah.
One, governance is basically, and AI assurance are going to be ways for us to basically add value to clients and hopefully make some money.
Yeah.
And right now it's the wild, wild west. And anybody who's listening or watching, I'd suggest get into the AI governance game now.
Yeah, yeah.
because there are going to be huge opportunities.
Yes, there are, and for all the right reasons too. I mean, if you're there, you can help people that went too far, and you're gonna have to pull them out of the mess, or help people before they get too far. It's like that saying. I mean, yeah, this is a fruitful pursuit because, man, if you sell umbrellas, it better be storming, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely,
I don't want to have to sell you a life raft. So let's start with the umbrella. Let's start with governance out the gate, and it's approachable. Again, it's a dry subject matter for some, it's juicy for others. I really dig into all of this personally, and really find that it provides a sense of peace and knowing, and a ability to plan objectively and through the subjective lens of what work I'm going to have to do. I feel it's inviting. It's not a
Mhm.
turnoff. I never thought I'd be into governance as much as I am these days, but I tell you what, it really helps guide your projects and give integrity to your step in every sense of the way, wherever you put it. So, man, that's key. So I really appreciate it. Um, is there anything that your company is doing right now that would be a good thing to advertise? In terms of things that you're helping companies with, approaches in AI. I know you guys are very busy as it is at Quality Plus Engineering, but I just wanted to give the shout out there for people who might want to, talk to you and reach out to you. You're in Oregon right now, right? That's where you're at. Okay.
We're in Oregon. So
Hmm.
I would rather put it on you and say, if people need to have consulting in AI assurance
Hmm.
or AI governance, go to Daniel
Okay.
because
Okay.
you're a
Fair
voice for that. So what are we doing? We basically have about 4 or 5 products.
enough. Hmm.
One, we're building the app.
Yep.
Two, we're going to be building an NIST has three major standards:
Hmm.
privacy framework, cybersecurity framework,
Hmm.
and the AI risk management framework. Next year, or starting this year, we're going to basically build apps for each one of those and integrate them over an ERM, enterprise risk management umbrella.
Nice.
Sec-
Nice.
Second thing that the feds are doing is they're going to require, probably in 26, every federal agency to comply with AI RMF.
Hmm. Yeah.
You can count the consultants in
Oh
basically
man.
two hands
Yeah. Yeah.
nationally who do that.
Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna be in the top 20 there. I'm gonna tell you something. All right, we're gonna be
Yeah, I
putting our
want
effort
you to be in
into
the
it.
top five, Daniel.
Yay! All right, I like the way you think, Greg. Yeah,
I
my
want you
heart's
to
in
be
it.
in I
Yeah.
want you to be in top five and then hire us to help you
Aha.
make money.
That sounds good. That sounds like some good marching orders. I tell you what, I appreciate it. Well, look, I want to encourage people to check out your website. Again, that's qualityplusengineering.com, spelled out in words, qualityplusengineering.com, and take a look at the books. You guys have some great books on supply chain risk management out there. Look, this is for manufacturing. This isn't just software. These aren't just ideas in the computer. This is like real working, moving parts out there in the world for large scale manufacturing. And again, just all of the books. The ISO 31000 book that you guys put out for enterprise risk management. It's beautiful. Risk based thinking, our CERM Academy. Look into it, everybody. There's risk based auditing using ISO 19011. 2008, again, a winner. All of these books are phenomenal, and I highly recommend checking out all the work from Quality Plus Engineering. And so, Greg, I know that we're running out of time, and I could keep going, but are there any other closing thoughts you'd like to leave out there for anybody, or anything coming up for companies to look out for in general, or any updates that you'd like to leave us with here?
Yeah, so two thoughts. One, and this is largely for consultants, um, get into the AI literacy game. There's big money coming through the US Department of Labor for consultants to do AI literacy.
Hmm.
Second, AI LinkedIn recognized AI literacy this year as the number one skill we all need to have.
That's right.
If you're a techie, get into the AI or MF game.
Hmm. Yes.
It's going to explode. And This is your time. Get into it, make money, have fun, do good.
There we go. Excellent. Well, Greg, thank you so much for the uplifting episode. Man, that was so much fun. I can't wait to have you back on, especially when you get a new book out or whatever you release your new app next year. I am ready for it. And again, just a great honor to have you on, and I will continue to follow all the talks that you do, and I just feel blessed to know you. And big thanks to David
Thank you,
Layton
Dan.
out there for pulling me into all this at Witty at WITI. Shout out to WITI. You guys are great.
He is great.
Yeah, but again, thank you so much, everybody. Greg Hutchins, I'm Dan Wilson here with the AI Think Tank podcast. Have a wonderful day, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you for
everybody.
the opportunity.